Hi everyone, welcome again to another episode of How I Fixed Your Data. I'm Jonas, co-founder of Koalify and host of this show. And today we have John. John, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a HubSpot consultant, I guess you could say. I run my own freelance business, and I've been working with HubSpot for, I don't know, since the early days, maybe 14 years or something like that,
Oh,
13, 14
wow.
years. Yeah, so way back when it was just a marketing tool. And then I worked at a couple of different agencies, and then I started my own business last year, almost 1 year ago, actually.
Nice, interesting. So you've seen the platform evolve for over 14 years. How has
Yes,
that
no,
been?
I need to count now. So I started, no, 11 years, 2014. That's 11 years. 11 years.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's an
but
exaggeration.
but still in those 11 years, like what happened? How did it evolve for you?
I guess HubSpot started like way back. It was just, way back when it was just basically a marketing plugin. It was just
Mhm.
the marketing automation tools. They hardly even had a CRM, no sales tools, definitely no customer success tools. And it was just in that inbound marketing era, I guess. I think a lot of like unsexy B2B companies, like the company I used to work to, we were sort of the prime target group for HubSpot back in the days. Yeah, it's crazy to see how much the platform has evolved from this just marketing add-on only used by the marketing department, and then like gradually transitioning into an enterprise CRM. And I think that the pace of how it's evolving now, the last 5 years, is insane. Like we used to, yeah, 10 years ago you had to wait so long for the slightest update, and now it seems every day you log into HubSpot and you just check the product updates tab and there's new
Yeah,
stuff there. So
this,
I'm almost a little bit concerned it's evolving too fast, to be honest. It's hard to keep up, and it's hard to
yeah,
keep up with like the having a holistic view on the entire platform these days is just almost impossible.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, but it sounds familiar. But great to hear that you experience it as well. It hasn't always been like that. But it's a good thing that there is
Yeah.
still innovation, that they keep innovating. So nice. We can talk way more about the platform in general, but today we want to focus on a specific use case where you solved a data issue for one of your clients. Could
Yes.
you maybe tell me a bit more about the client first, just to introduce and have an idea of
Mhm.
what they're doing as a business and what kind of data they're generating, and then later on specify what problems they run into with their data?
Yeah, so it's an interesting company actually. I guess you could define it almost like a SaaS company,
Hmm.
but they work within the construction industry, and it's co-owned by the major construction companies in Sweden.
Hmm.
And the purpose of the company is to share knowledge about like building rules and standards and stuff like that. And the main business is selling the platform or the app basically. But
Hmm.
then on top of that, they also have informants. So maybe I work at a big construction company and I want to learn the latest about how you build things within a certain business or a certain segment. So you buy a subscription where they will come to your office maybe once a quarter, and they have a big, we will come to that. This is one of the issues we have to solve, is that they have quite a big IT department with a lot
Hmm.
of in-house developers, in-house solution architects. So a few of the systems they use, they built themselves, and they also build
Uh-huh.
a lot of the integrations themselves. And they use HubSpot Enterprise All. So that was the project we started 2 years ago, was implementing HubSpot, and we tried to get rid a lot of these silo systems that were just
Hmm.
sitting there working. Living their own life, and then we implemented sales, so the entire sales team is in there, and then they have a few other types of team that sort of deal with like the informants I told you about. They have a setup, where they keep track of like the next meeting and where they're supposed to be and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then they have the customer success team, or customer support, I should say, team in there, and they handle, I think, around like 70 or 80,000 tickets per year in HubSpot. So they were pretty
Okay.
early on with the new help desk. So that was interesting to actually test that. And
Yeah.
then they have a marketing department of maybe 10 people, something like that, working in HubSpot
Okay.
as well. And roughly I think it's like 60,000 companies in HubSpot and around 200,000 contacts or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
interesting use case. Full suite, older company that's evolving, so probably a lot of old data and
yeah.
from different integrations. So I can imagine some data quality issues already, but which ones did you mainly run into?
Yeah. So, like I said, they have these different systems. So how we integrated HubSpot is it's integrated with ERP system. It's integrated with the e-commerce platform. It's integrated with their self-built license and user management system, and then a few other things. And then we also did a big migration from the previous CRM system called SuperOffice, which is, I think, is a Norwegian or Swedish, Nordic at least, CRM system. And they've all, like I said, been working in these different silos. So the CRM people just worked in the CRM, just the sales, and then you have some people just inputting data into the license management system, and then you have someone inputting data into the ERP system. So they were not aligned at all. And we knew this was going to be an issue when we did the implementation, but we were not quite aware of how big the issue actually was, like how many duplicates that were actually generated. And they were generated a lot by just human, like you would just type in an email address in one system and then type it in another system, and then you would misspell it or type it wrong, or the organization number or the business ID, you would type something in the ERP system and then something completely different in the other system. So it was a lot of issues with that. So when we tried to consolidate everything and put everything in HubSpot, where one company is one business ID basically, and then they were just a huge amount of duplicates, and also a lot of duplicates due to just like old companies that did not exist anymore, like they had no previous cleanup process at all. So we knew this would happen, but we did not quite understand the scope of it. We sort of realized that along the way when we put all the data in HubSpot. We were like, whoa, that's a lot. It's a lot in here that we need to clean up.
It's pretty big. And then did they experience issues from those duplicates? Like what were they running into? Was it their sales team? Was contacting the same people twice?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, so marketing would send marketing emails to the same person, just using different emails, but then also like the sales team, like what company should we put the deal on? Is it this one? Is it that one? Etc. Yeah, so we have that, and another issue is that since in HubSpot now we have the subscription, or they call it the license. So maybe I buy something with one email, but I use my other email as my sign up to access the system. So sometimes I would buy something, I would have the license, that would be what I use. And then commercially someone would email another email address, and then that email address would be out of date or somewhere else, but I would still have my login with my old email address. So it's a little bit of confusion, like who to contact and not. And they managed to solve this by figuring it out, but it was just a lot of extra work for them to figure this out. And then the other issue, I think, comes more from marketing and communication wise. Like it was hard for them to, they got a lot of bounces, a lot of, it was just hard with the filtering as well of contacts and companies. And maybe you had one company that was actually had the correct business ID. There was actually a valid business ID, and I'll get to that in a bit, I think, how we validated that. And all the, so there you would get like all the company information, like company size, what industry they belong to, etc. And then the company they used to actually buy the stuff was a different company. And then you do a lot of segmentations on the marketing side, where you want to combine like how much you're actually buying and what segment they belong to. These would be two different records. So that was that's an issue as well. So you couldn't really get like the right insights in the database as well because of that.
Yeah, okay, so it's really a combination on the different areas in marketing, in the service teams, that there are different records with different email addresses, sending emails, or using the email address as a login.
Yep.
And also in reporting. That's pretty big, a lot of different sources. How did you approach the situation? Like you come into HubSpot, all the data is in there, and then what happens?
Yeah, so the first thing that was hard for us was just identifying what's a duplicate. So let's take you into so some of the bigger clients they have, are actually like it's a company hierarchy. So maybe it would be 5 or even 10 companies belonging to the same organization or the same what do you call it? The same group, I guess, the same company group. But they were all named the same. Like it would be Jon Mogard operations on all of them, or some of them, or some not. But then they also but they were actually unique identities. So you wouldn't know which one is a duplicate and which one should actually stay as a company, as its own object or entity. So the first thing we had to do, and this was also part of the project, was to make sure we have the correct company names to be able to identify duplicates. And for that, we built an integration to an enrichment service called UC in Swedish. It's it's basically when you look up a company in Sweden, you go to allabolag.se, which basically means all companies.se, and you do a search. So that's the database we're using, and that data a lot of that is Swedish tax information. So when you register a company, you have to submit like, what's my main industry, how many employees, etc., and you get like all the turnovers and everything from the when you submit like your numbers every year. So that was the first step, actually. Like, we need to make sure to clean up the data and make sure that we know what's a duplicate and not. So we built an integration. So now, as soon as we have a business ID, we do a lookup with the integration, and then we enrich it, and then we get like, oh, it's actually this company name, and then the other company name. So that was the first step for companies, at least. And after that, then we just had to look for a tool. And first, we tried to build something on our own, because the HubSpot built-in deduplication tool was just not good enough. It's a little bit better now, but when we started this maybe half a year ago at least, then it wasn't. Or even earlier than that, actually, last fall. So then I just found out about Koalify on LinkedIn, not sure where, somewhere. And I quite like that you could set your custom rules for identifying duplicates, and that you could also, and that was the major thing actually, automate it in a good way. You can do some of that in HubSpot as well, but it's not as advanced as in Koalify. And then the next challenge was like, okay, so now we know the duplicates. The next challenge is like identifying the primary duplicates. And here, it's just a long set of rules. I can show you if it's interesting to see, but it's if I share screen here, hang on. There we go. So if I just go on the primary rules here, and
could you maybe start with the duplicate rules first for the identification? I'm
duplicate
curious.
rules is super simple. Like for companies, since we enrich the company, and we only do this on companies that are enriched, where we have the business ID, it's just the main thing we use. Organization number we use, but it's a unique field now in HubSpot, so it's not a problem. VAT number the same. But I would say this is the primary duplicate rule.
Nice.
Company name. Because we can trust that the company name is correct. And then we have some rules like who we decide to merge and not. That's based on, we don't merge any companies where we haven't done this enrichment on the company. So we control it there instead. But it's basically company name match. And then one thing we also used that I thought was quite good when we found out about it was the formatting rules here.
Just if I understand correctly, like before you weren't able to rely on the company domains because like multiple child companies could, for example, have the same company domain. But you enriched the data within HubSpot with external data source where every name was unique based on their company registration number, which you have in Sweden, but also in some other European countries like Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany. And that data through in unique company names, and then you're merging based off of that if there is an exact match.
Exactly that.
Cool.
And then it was also nice when I found out about these things, because we're in Sweden, we have a lot of special characters, and that was an issue first. I was like, why is it merging these two companies? But then once I turned that off, it worked well. So that was good. And also I had to ignore the can't ignore the common words either, because it has to be a super exact match, basically. yeah, so those are the duplicate rules for companies. And then if we go to the primary rules, this is where it got a little bit more complicated. So the rules we have here is basically, so it's in Swedish here, but what is the primary company? Then we looked at what this says is the number of active subscriptions, number of active licenses, if they've had like a, oh, sorry, hang on. Did I go to the correct one? Yes, I did. Did I go to the company ones? Ah, there we are. I feared it was weird.
Yeah, that was on the
for
contacts.
I'll get to that later. No, so the primary rules we have first then is that it has to have synced with the, so the company that has synced with UC, that's the company, like it's gonna be the primary one, basically.
Yeah.
And then we had a few other things, and that was from SuperOffice, and that's their old CRM system, and that was a fairly clean system. Like of all the systems they had, their old CRM system was the cleanest one. So then it could look like if this company comes from SuperOffice, the chances of it being like a primary company is a lot higher than if it comes from like one of the weird home-built systems that they built. And then we go down to the same, like number of active subscriptions, number of active licenses, number of subscriptions in total, and then number of associated deals, and da. But it's never gonna go this far.
Yeah, you're very granular in setting, like this one should be the primary. I want to mainly retain the values from these.
Exactly. Okay. So I would say like here somewhere it's gonna go on this one. If they're all found, they all have synced, and then I think this one is basically gonna determine 99% of the primary duplicates. Okay. So the other ones are just there for a safeguard, basically.
Nice.
But then we ran into the next issue, which was, and this could be a little bit technical here, but so the new way
that's what we want to hear, John.
of HubSpot handles duplicates, and I'm sure you're aware of this, or handles a merge. It used to be that the primary company ID, the primary company record, was kept, and the one you merge into that is merged into that, and then they delete the merged one. What happens now is that it looks at, okay, so this one is the primary, and then it deletes that one and creates a new company and merge both of them into that new company, which means the company gets a new record ID, which is, I guess, in HubSpot great, but if you have integrations dependent on the record ID, it's not so great. And also, a lot of these things are not exposed through the API. You can't see if these two other companies have been deleted or not. Like it's done somewhere in the dark. You don't know. And as you can know, you can't see it on the deleted companies in HubSpot. It's just gone, basically. And you can't ask the API, like, what happened here? Like, the only teller, really, is that a field will be updated, you know all of this, but the field will be updated, merge company records. That field will be updated in HubSpot on the company that was kept. But the problem is then we have other systems, and what happens is when you merge a company, basically you get 3 companies all of a sudden in in the other systems, and like, hey, which one are we keeping? We have no idea. We have 3 companies here. So I had to do this weird workaround to solve this, where I have a workflow before I merge the company. So this is the enrollment trigger for merging the companies using the Koalify action to merge. So I enroll it, and then I set on the record, I set deleted company equals to yes. So this is just for the other systems to know that this company has been deleted in HubSpot and you should delete it too. And then I have to delay for 4 hours because we sync every 3 hours with other systems. So if I do this before then you wouldn't get the company, the other company, the merge company, you wouldn't know. And then I do the merge.
Okay.
So now and since I'm merging this, the value yes will sit on the new record as well, meaning on all 3 records that's now gonna show up in the other systems. So then I had to have another workflow that, like, after the merge, and I trigger this on that the merged company IDs field has been updated, and is a yes on deleted. I then delay for 10 minutes to allow Koalify to do all the work. I know that takes less time for Koalify, but I just need to make sure that all companies have been merged if there are multiple companies.
Yeah.
And then I just clear it, which means in the other systems or in the integration, they will have 3 companies, 2 that says delete yes, and then null, which means that's the one to keep.
Yeah, but very creative and clean in the end. So
well,
nice.
It's a weird workaround, and I think it's stupid that you can't get this from the API, but it works. So I'm fine with it for now. It was just a little bit of fiddling with the scripts in the back end, but yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
And then I do exactly the same with the contacts. This has been working well. We cleaned up, I think, 18,000 duplicates as of now with this, and it's running really smoothly so far.
Okay.
I would say.
Glad to hear.
And I mean, going forward, not that many duplicates will probably show up in HubSpot. I think the bulk of the duplicates that we might end up with is companies created through like marketing conversions or something like that, or some weird import someone is doing. But now this was like the main cleanup from integrating all the systems to HubSpot has been sort of solved with just like running the workflow the first time.
Yeah, nice. And now this is going to happen continuously. Like you mentioned, not that many new duplicate companies are created, but for the contacts, probably a bit more.
Is another issue.
Yeah.
So the contacts are a lot more complicated because there you have to handle email addresses, and which one is the primary email. It's a lot harder to determine. We can determine it by, again, like looking at like number of closed won deals, because whenever they buy something in the e-commerce store, that's creating an order in the e-commerce pipeline here in HubSpot, and you can sort of guess that, okay, you bought something, then this is probably the primary one. Also, your license is associated with, or your subscriptions associated with your content, etc. But here it's a lot harder to define like what is actually a duplicate. In Sweden, like in Iceland and Norway and Denmark, there's a lot of common last names that could be the same. And some of our bigger clients, we have like, I think we have one where we have like 2,000 contacts, and the chances of 2 people being named exactly the same is quite high.
Yeah.
So the duplicate rules are like first name, last name, and company name. And the company name we then only look on the synced companies, and then we sync that company name to the contact through a sync property. So it's not dependent on what they type in. If they convert on a form and update the company name, it's based on the actual business legal name. So that works for 9 out of 10 cases, but I had to actually exclude like our bigger clients from this duplication, and there we had to actually manually go through some of the identified duplicates, because it's it could be, they're named exactly the same and they work at the same company, and then they just change the email address, so it's like john.m.mogard@whatever.com, and then john.l, etc. And we can solve this by using the phone number in some cases, but not all of them have phone numbers. So there's a little bit of manual work still, but it's like minor, I would say. And it's also one of these things you have to do them one time, and then it's not as often. So it's just creating a view using the number of qualified duplicates, and then they can just browse through them and have a look and see, is this actually a duplicate? No, it's actually 2 different persons. So that works. But again, contacts are always a bit more complicated.
Yeah, that's a good balance indeed between the bulk merges or the automated merges and the manual merges. And did you capture that logic of these companies in the workflow, or did you capture it in the duplicate rules? The fact that you exclude specific bigger companies from your first name, last name?
So I still want to identify the duplicates because I want to run through them. So this I capture in the workflow, so I don't automatically merge them.
Could you share that briefly?
Yes. So it's, as you can see here, then it's all in Swedish here. So first name, last name, and here I have the company name that's a sync property basically. And then again, the latest sync date is known. I'm not merging any contact duplicates where it's not known. And then I have, this is the segment, which is premium, which is the bigger bigger, like the few really big companies.
Okay, yeah.
We exclude them.
Okay, nice. It's clean.
So far, so good. I mean, the company one we did a couple of weeks ago, I think, or a month ago, or something like that. And the contacts we just did, maybe 2-3 weeks ago. So now it's about like running through and checking the contacts that we're unsure of.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah. So you're like in a final stage in a couple of weeks, and you mentioned that you're able to merge 18,000 records already, roughly?
Yeah, 18,000 company records.
Okay.
And then I can't remember how many contacts we merged so far, but I think it was like 8,000 or something like that.
Okay. That's a pretty big cleanup indeed. And did the client notice anything? Like, was there any?
Yeah, so on the contacts, they haven't really had the time to work through it, but sales are really happy about the companies, and also customer support. Like, it's a lot easier for them to identify the correct companies. I think it's about like, it's always this thing when you move into HubSpot and you change system, and you have your old ways of looking at things, and you're used to, like, if you look at sales, for instance, they're used to open up the ERP system, open up the backend system, checking things there, open up like ClickView or whatever they be using for, because they don't quite trust the data yet in HubSpot. They're a little bit unsure. Can I actually trust these numbers? Is this actually correct? Is this the right company? Maybe I should double check this. And some of that is just like a new system and they're just unsure. And some of it actually is like data issues. Can we actually trust the numbers here? And I think like now they've been up and running for a year and a half. They're starting to trust HubSpot more and more. And this was a little bit like maybe like the last bit of that, where they thought they couldn't trust HubSpot entirely because they were unsure if this was the correct company or not. So I think this will, and then finally we can also use the sort of the potential of HubSpot when it comes to getting insights on your customer base. Like, it's been a bit difficult when you couldn't trust the data. First, we had to enrich the molds to get the right industries and company sizes, and then making sure we merge them so we can actually, because we get like everything in HubSpot. You have like the ARR, you have everything basically, all the data you need, all the sales data and everything. And now you can actually do like valid reports from that and then trigger actions on at the back end of that, which is quite nice. So now I'm pretty excited about like what this opens up in terms of working a bit smarter in HubSpot as well, and actually them being able to utilize like all the functions in HubSpot that they couldn't quite do when we couldn't trust the data. So yeah,
sounds great. Sounds like a good win. Could you finalize maybe with some lessons learned?
Yeah, so, and I think this comes maybe back more to, so you can have like two approaches, I think, when you do a big implementation like this, when it comes to data. You can try to clean up the data before you put it into HubSpot. Do as much clean as you can in the separate systems and then put it in there. Or you can say like, hey, we're just going to chuck it all in here and then clean it up in HubSpot. And sometimes it's easier to actually do that because you have a lot of tools in HubSpot, like you can utilize the workflow tools. It's quite easy to export and import. It's quite easy to build scripts and stuff and integrations with HubSpot to clean it up. But on the other hand, it means that you sort of, like the trust issue I was talking about, like it's like you get overwhelmed almost by everything, all the data in HubSpot and all the cleanup you have to do. And then you really need to be aware of this in the project, that there will be some sort of cleanup phase or some sort of phase when you go live in HubSpot and start using it where the data will not be correct. And that puts a lot of distrust in the system, I think, and sort of decreases the user adoption a little bit. So I think hindsight in this particular project, we should have been more aware of like how bad the data was in the other systems and did proper testing there, and should have done more cleaning before we put it into HubSpot. I think. So yeah, that's a little bit of a learning.
Sounds familiar. I've done some migration projects as well, but what I mainly remember, if you want to get all the data in, you generally have to have the contacts and the companies in there with their unique IDs from the other systems,
Yeah.
to then also import the activities or the deals and to associate them correctly to the.
Sure.
So if you have to do, yeah, it's always a thin balance. If you have to do all that cleanup before, then it will also take you a long time. So
And again, like I mean, if we had to do it outside of HubSpot initially, then it's a lot harder because you need to basically sit with SQL queries and be very smart, and you still have to create all these rules and scripts to identify duplicates and identify everything. And with HubSpot, there are a lot of pre-made tools like Koalify and other things that you can sort of use in there. So, but I do think, like in this case, like we could have probably reduced at least half of the duplicates quite easily before moving into HubSpot, and that could have saved us a lot of headache. But we knew it was going to be like this, and that was one of the project goals, was to, like stop working in silo systems, try at least to get that sought after utopia of one system for all the data, the 360 view of the customer. And to be honest, like it took us 2 years of implementation and building integrations and cleaning up, but now we're nearly there, which is quite
cool. You start seeing the benefits now with the reports and the users trusting the data. Cool. Thanks a lot. It was a very nice conversation, very nice insights. Learned a lot again. And would love to partner with you in the future. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.